Hi, I'm Stefan, the BMW DIY guy, and today I'm kind of the Bavarian DIY guy because I'm going to install the new AvinUSA 9-inch screen into a Mercedes ML350. This is a huge upgrade. Not only is it a bigger screen, it's set out a little bit better, it brings all the Android functionality and everything that you want to bring into your car, plus a better, brighter, bigger screen. So even your OEM functionality like backup camera and 360 cameras and everything else is going to look better with this new screen. This is a fantastic upgrade. Now remember, everything you need is linked in the description below. There'll be links off to everything and all the tools that I use. And also make sure to click the subscribe button and a little alarm bell because I always have new projects coming. All right, let's get out to the garage. Let's check it out. All right, so the very first thing we want to do is we want to remove this bezel around the outside of the command unit. So always use a plastic trim tool. The kit will be listed in the description of the video. And just work it in gently here in the plastic and just gently work it up. There's 4 posts, 1, 2, 3, 4, that all hold this into place. So you don't want to pry on it too hard. You just want to slowly work it up and work this out. And this is really tight. It's probably never been off before. There you go. There's 3. And then there's 4. Okay, it's loose, and go ahead and set it aside. Always use plastic on plastic. Using a screwdriver or something similar, you're going to ding up your plastic and you're going to make it look bad. Okay, so the next thing you want to do is you actually want to remove your AC controls here. Now if you duck down, and it's going to be really hard to see on the camera, but there are 2 notches. There's a notch here and a notch there. And again, you're going to use a plastic trim tool. Forgive me if you get to see the back of my head here for a second. Get your plastic trim tool in and just gently pry. Now this side is out because there's clips holding the AC controls in as well. And you want to do the same on this side. Find the little bezel notch and work it out. So there you go. And then gently work your AC controls out. So now those are pulled out and set down, as you can see. Now what you've got here are 2 locks. Now what's interesting is it's actually missing a screw on this side. So there are 2 T20 screws here and here. And actually in this car, it's actually missing one, which is interesting. These locks, you pull the screws out, then pull that lock down. So maybe this head unit has been out before. Who knows, right? So go ahead and take them both out. Super simple. Set it aside someplace safe so you don't drop it. You don't drop it down into your console or anything similar, and then pull the lock down. Now with those locks down, the entire command unit will come out. Now when you pull on this and you work on it, now the one thing you want to be really careful about is that you very likely have a cable plugged in on this side. So you're going to want to pull this cable off. So we're going to work this head unit out really slowly and get it to come on and out, and then I'll show you what the rest of the wiring harness looks like. I want to show what the head unit out looks like. So you've got all your cable harness here on the back. Now initially the head unit was still fighting me a little bit, didn't want to come out. These locks kind of have these locks right here actually have almost a 2-stage where they kind of came down halfway and then they came down all the way. Once they came down all the way, it slid right out without a problem. So always make sure to lay down a cloth or something similar to protect the command unit or the head unit. You don't want to ding anything up as you do this work. All right, so the next 2 things you're going to find, you've got 2 T20s right here. So go ahead and take those out. I've already taken those out. So you can see the piece is a little bit loose. So you take those 2 T20s out. Now this piece is now held in by pressure. So again, you're going to want to take your plastic trim tool. Be really careful prying on this because this is a big long piece with your vents that go back into the dash. So when you pry on this, you want to make sure that you're prying carefully. So kind of get a little bit up, get your tool in, pry it a little bit, get it up, pry it a little bit until it comes out, and it will all just feed out. Now this piece is out and it's got 2 cables that secure it into place. What we want to be able to do is be able to get to the screen screws right here. So you've got a couple of different options. One, you can unplug your vents, because if you got your 2 cables here, just unplug them. Then you can set your vents aside, which is what I'm going to do. Or you could potentially just kind of pull them down and out of the way if you wanted to save that time. Either way, it's about the same, because what we want to do is be able to get to the 2 T20s to take the screen out. So that's what's next. So let me get the vents out of the way because I want you to be able to see what we're doing. Then we're going to take the screen out. All right, so really easy stuff. So take out the 2 T20s here. They're big, long metal screws, much longer than the ones you've taken out earlier. Then your screen is going to tip forward. And these are actually cables that are coming up off of your head unit right here. But you've only got 2 cables here on the back. and they're little squeeze connectors. So you want to squeeze on them and take it out. Same thing here. Take the blue one out, which is a little bit tighter than the other. It's very similar. Looks very similar actually to the optical cable you see on the displays on BMWs actually. So there's a little tab on it, and it is really tight. Now what you can also do potentially, if it's fighting you like this, is you can still use your plastic trim tool as well. Make sure that you're depressing the tab, and then you can just work the plug up and out. And actually that was much easier. That came out much easier than trying to manhandle it. So there you go. All right, so now the OEM screen is out. So now we're going to take a look at what it takes to get the new one in. All right, so as you can see, I've got the vents out, the head units out, everything's all set to good to go. And what we need to do is actually get the frame for your new screen in first. Now, what I've done here in the interim is I've skipped ahead on one little component, or on one little piece, and that would be your GPS and 4G antennas. Let me talk about that a little bit. So there's many different places you can put these antennas. Your GPS antenna is a little kind of round puck. Your 4G antenna is a longer kind of strip antenna. So there's a lot of different places you can put them, and it's really gonna vary. I found that I've been very successful with my antennas up underneath the dash, so they're hidden, and not had any reception problems. I've talked to a lot of people on the forums and off my comments on my videos where they've had some issues. So install them the best place that works for you. Now the other thing that I found is there's two little alcoves sitting back here where I can put both antennas, and they're going to fit really well. It's going to be difficult to show on camera because they're tucked back here, but I've put the GPS on this side because this is the side that it plugs into on the display, and the 4G on this side, and they both tuck back really nice, and they sit almost underneath the screen here, so they have very little material above them. So I believe that reception is not going to be an issue. So now what we have to do is we have to install the mounting plate here, and we've got to take it off and install this box first. So I've taken off the two little covers. There's two little screws back in there that'll pull this off. And then we're going to put the mounting plate on here and here with the screws that you took out of your screen. So I wanted to show that to you. Let me get this done. Let me get this pulled off. Let me get the box on. And then we're going to start routing cables. We'll also talk about routing the cables off for your head unit and routing them up through for your display, because this is going to give you a really nice clean install when you put your vents back in as well. So let me get this off. Let me get this installed, and I'll show you next steps. All right, as you can see, the mounting frame is on, and that's good to go. You could actually potentially even put your vents back on now, but I'm going to hold off so I've got a little bit of extra room to work with. So let's talk about your head unit here. Now, so your head unit and cable management is going to be really important, and I'm not going to be able to cover every single scenario that you have for your install. Like if you've got aftermarket speakers, or you have RCA, or you've done a different amp, or you've got a aftermarket backup camera. I mean, there's a million different things that you could do, and I'm not going to be able to cover them all. So I'm just going to cover what is the standard kind of default install. Okay, so here on the back of your head unit, you've got a large plug. It's got a horseshoe collar lock on it. So you press down and pull up, the plug will come off. As you can see here on the orange cables right here, these are your optical cables. There's a little locking tab on top of those optical cables. You lift it very gently with a pick. Make sure not to break that tab. Lift the little tab and your optical cables will come out. Now, in your new wiring harness that came with your display, you've got a very similar plug. Put your optical cable into the exact same position and then lock it into place. And then, because it looks like this, take your OEM plug off the back of your head unit, plug it into the kind of male into the female of your new wiring harness right there, and you're all plugged in and good to go. So now it's coming out of the OEM to the wiring harness and into your head unit. Now at the other end, you've got a bunch of different cabling that you're going to want to plug in. So you've got this cable, which is also going to plug into the back of the display here on the left side. You've got your original OEM blue plug that was on the back of the display that plugs into the adapter here. And then also what you've got here is you've got USB ports. You've got an aux in, you've got all kinds of other different connections that you can have. Now, you're going to need to make a choice on what you want to do with all of this. Now, I often route my USB over to my glove box. I'm not sure that there's a good way to do that in this case, or even if you want them. If you don't want them, just wrap them up nicely and tuck them back behind, so you're not going to worry about it. Now the other thing that we're going to touch on here really briefly is going to be the aux port, and we're going to come back to that. Now on the other side here as well, so and this is your main big plug that's going to come into your display. It's going to route here on the right side. You've got a huge wiring bundle with all kinds of connections here. You got RCA, if you have aftermarket backup cameras, you name it. We don't have that in this case, so I'm just going to wrap it up and make sure that it stays nice, neat, and clean when I put it back behind. So if you're just doing a stock install, at this point you can get all this plugged in and then just take your cables, route them back behind, and route them back up through. Now, your GPS antenna is going to be here on the left. So I'm going to route that through the left side of the port on the mounting frame, right there. And again, make sure that my cables stay all nice, neat, and clean, and they're not. So as you can see, I had a little bit of an overlap. So just make sure that your cable install is going well. And the nice thing about this model is you have all kinds of space back here behind your head unit. It's not as tight as some models. So you don't have to be quite as meticulous about it, but just make sure everything is routed correctly. So what I'm going to do next is route the display, the smaller plug display screen on the side. I've got my GPS on the side. My 4G antenna is going to go on this side with that cable. And I am going to install the 4G antenna even though I don't have a 4G SIM installed into the display right now. The other thing I'm going to suggest is that if you're going to put like a CF card or something similar, or a 4G card in, put them in now, because it's a heck of a lot easier to do it now. So let me get all these cables routed, and then I'm going to show you kind of the next steps. We're going to get our vents put on, we get the cover put on, and we're pretty close to done. Okay, now that you have all your cables routed that you want to get routed around, so I've got my GPS and cables and my 4G cables all routed through the frame. So this thing you see where you're going to need to put your vents back on, because this is where this frame sits into your vents. So at this point, if everything is all locked up in your setup here, and make sure that your two wires that go into your vents haven't been lost or pulled down, you can go ahead and put your vents back in, and you can even screw them back in. So I'm going to put the vents back in next, and yeah, I just hit my cables, but I just want to show you. And then what we can do is we can put our center plate back in and make sure that we route our cables up and through. So then this is really the point of just putting everything all back together. So it's really not all that hard to do, and really is only a couple of simple tools. So let me get my vents back in. Now, just as always, be really careful when you press them back in. I mean, this is pretty flexible plastic. You could break it. So just be gentle, right? Don't force anything. Once I've got my vents back in, we'll get the center plate in, and then we'll get the display on. Okay, so as you can see, I've got my cables run. I've got the center support back in. I've got the vents in. I also put the little covers on to make sure, after making sure that those screws are in tight. So at this point, you can put your display on. So just make sure that everything is plugged in nice and tight. You've got your GPS on the GPS side, and these little antennas, I mean, you can use a small little wrench to tighten them down if you want, but it really doesn't matter all that much. I've always just done them finger tight, and they've been fine. So the other thing you've got with this is you've got these little slots that are going to fit in here. They're going to slide it in and slide down. Now the other thing I've done is there's covers here on the back, because we're going to drive in two screws as well right here. But you've got to pull those covers off first, so I've already pulled those off right there and there. And then we're not going to be able to see, when we put those screws in, you're not going to be able to see with the camera, but you can see where they go pretty simply. So it's just a matter of just getting the two antennas screwed in here, and then getting the two plugs in, and then feeding the cables. Now, you could have put your head unit probably back in by now if you wanted, but I tried not to, because that gives me the opportunity to reach back behind and pull cables back and do cable management and make sure that the install is nice and clean, right? So, okay, so the antennas are on. We get our plugs in there and there, and as you can see, they snap into place. And then you can just feed your cabling back to make sure you don't have any extra cable floating around or getting in the way, just like that. Okay, so then it's going to be a matter of just kind of sliding it all back and getting those slots into place. Now, it's a little hard to see, so it's going to be a matter of just kind of getting it in And you'll be able to tell when they kind of fit in and slide down. You can see my display's already come on, so this side is in. We just got to get this other side in and then slide the whole piece down, and then we can put those 2 screws in as well. So let me get this set up, and then we'll drive in the 2 screws, and then we're going to put this all back together, and we'll almost be done. All right, so as you can see, the display is in, and I've got those 2 screws in. Don't forget to put the little 2 covers on as well. You know, you'll never see them, but you know, nice to have them in place. So now we just need to slide the head unit back into place, and it's just a matter of just getting all of these cables to tuck back, because you've got some extra cables in here now, right? So as you do this, just guide gently, don't force anything. And again, if you've got a place where you feel like it doesn't want to route, you've still got your AC controls out here, so you can actually reach back and get into some of these and pull some of the cables back and away for you to get some more space. So it's just a matter of just kind of working it all back into place. So as you can see, initially it doesn't want to go all the way back. Obviously I've got cables in the way. So it's just a matter of just kind of working it, getting the cables to pull down and out of the way, and then you can get the rest into place. Once this is into place, push these 2 locks fully back up, put in the 2 screws, and put your AC controls on, and then your surround around the outside, which will just snap straight back into place. Now at that point, you're all done. So let me get this worked back into place. I'll snap the AC controls back in, and then we'll just do a very quick high-level walkthrough of the display. I'll do a full detailed display of it itself at a later date. Okay, so as you can see, the display's up and running, everything's reinstalled. I just wanted to walk through a couple of settings things that are important to make sure that the display is in and working for you. I can do a full kind of technology walkthrough and another video, and I'll plan on doing so. But you want to make sure that it displays your OEM side correctly, and the initial settings for my display were not the case, and it came up looking all garbled and looking just horrible. So if that's the case, I can show you what to do. So tap anywhere to go back to the Android side. Okay, then we're going to go into settings, and you scroll down to factory. The factory code is 1314, and then enter. Now there's a ton of things in here. I'm not going to go through them all. There's just too many to go through right at the moment. You can look at your different choices of, you know, what mode it comes up into, whether it comes up on the OEM side or Android side or whatever when it starts. But the biggest thing you're looking at is car display. So when you hit car display, you've got a ton of different options depending on which model of car you have, whether full screen or half screen, what year, and so on. And as I went through the options, and I'm in a 2014 ML350, option 13, the NTG40, NTG 4.5, 800 by 480 by 7, the 2003-2005 gave me the correct display. So I select that, and I went back home, and then I went to the menu, and then now everything shows up properly. So everything works correctly. Now I'm making sure to mute sound right now, because every time I've got music or sound in the background, my video gets taken down. But as you can see, it's up and working. All the scrolls work, which is great. All your options work as you go in through the Android side. When you go back to the OEM side, and you can't see the dial right at the moment, but the dial works, you know, correctly. Everything's working right. But then also, if you look at the Android side as well, I'm turning the dial on the console, and as you can see, it's working. So it's set up properly too. So everything is all done. You can see you can get this work done with a plastic trim tool, a screwdriver, and a T20 Torx, and it's not all that hard, so there's no reason why you couldn't do this work yourself. So all done. So make sure to check out all the functionality, make sure that everything works, you don't have a loose cable or anything else, and you should be good to go. All right, all done, all cleaned up, my tools put away. As you can see, this is not a hard project. This is something you can absolutely do yourself with a few simple tools. Everything you need will be listed in the description below. So if you have any questions there, that's where you get them, and that's what you're gonna need. Thanks for watching my video. I really appreciate it. Thank you to Avin for having a fantastic product that really is going to make a huge difference in the ML350. If you have any questions, always let me know, and I'll see you on my next video.